Alright, so before moving on to the 3/4 view, I want to add a few minor corrections to the front view here. So the first thing I want to do is when we're dealing with this section here, the hip section, I want to show, just like I did with the back, this iliac crest here, and you can definitely see this from the front view. This is where a lot of muscles will attach to. I think it's important to just note this kind of dip here because it comes in handy when you're I wasn't save it for the more detailed structure of the hip, but I might as well go ahead and put it here in the skeleton, and we can go through more detail later. But so this shape here, it kind of has a shape like this. I just want to kind of refine this just a bit and show more of the actual shape that this thing has. You can see part of that vertebrae back there, and this kind of comes down and attaches in here. Now this whole part here, the sacrum, it goes back into space, because remember from the side view, if we come over here, it goes back into space like this. It curves back around away from us. And because it's moving back away from us, it gets a little bit foreshortened. Now I can get like in huge detail of this. I don't want to spend too much time, but still I want to just kind of show this kind of look here. And the other thing I want to do is I want to take this whole portion right here, and let's go ahead and erase this as well. I want to extend it down just a little bit further because it can actually extend down just a little bit further. Or rather, it should extend down a little bit further. So let's go ahead and extend this down to about here. I'm drawing on the wrong layer. Right, so let's just extend this down like this. There's this attachment here with the bones. We'll come up to where the leg, where the femur attaches, like this. We're not going to get too detailed here with all the little nuances, but we'll make it accurate enough to fit the proper shapes. Okay, this kind of comes like this. Right. Right, I went ahead and colored it in with the bone color, and then you can still see some of these holes here. Oops, make sure I go back to black. You can see one here, and they kind of get, they're kind of going back in space because this is all going back in space. Right, so I just want to show because these parts right here do kind of come down a little bit below the line, and I wanted to show that. So yeah, same with the back view then. So I'm going to take all this here. I'm just going to extend it down just a little bit further. Not much, but it does just come down a little bit further like that. I'll go ahead and recolor in this color here. Let's go back to black, back to here. There's just one more other correction I want to make from the front view, and that is down here it should get thinner. So all this here should get thinner as it goes down. So let's go ahead and go to transform. I'm going to do this a simple way and distort, and I'm going to just kind of pinch this in and pull it up like so. The knee joints, like this joint is more the right size. This gets a little bit bigger down here when it shouldn't. But some people do have bigger knee caps or whatever. But just keep that in mind. You might want to make it a little bit smaller. This is the quick, easy way to kind of fix this problem here. Okay. So it's not a big deal that if you already kind of, learned it from the video and drew it that large, because all you have to do is keep in mind that, okay, it's a little bit smaller than that, and it's not a big change. So I wouldn't worry about it, messing you up or anything. Distorting things is part of style anyway. So learning how to distort objects is a good thing. So it's actually a good thing I did that because it is it's something you want to learn how to do. That is, you want to learn how to exaggerate features and minimize features and stuff to start developing different styles, like different comic books or just really cool cartoon styles or just style in general. And so being able to kind of do that, go okay, so that feet were bigger, now make them smaller is a good thing, right? So the 3/4 view is pretty much going to be the same as a side view and a front view. So you're seeing a little bit of the side and a little bit of the front at the same time. So the first thing we do, we're going to kind of sketch in the basic shape of everything here. So the head, let's see what, make sure I'm on the right brush here. I'm going to kind of just sketch in a circle about like so, kind of because it's kind of, remember, you're kind of seeing a little bit of the side and a little bit of the front. So then the front, so it's not going to be as wide because you're not seeing the whole entire side view, but you are seeing a little bit of it. And then you have the jaw coming off. And the main thing here is I'm making sure what I'm paying attention to as I'm drawing is that I'm keeping everything the same size. And if I was doing separate drawings, it wouldn't really matter. I can do them however but these are all supposed to be unified and the same size. So. And so remember, this is gonna end up down here, the spine. And remember, it kind of has this pulling forward effect and it gets thicker, kind of pulls forward. I'm keeping this loose and sketchy for now. I'm just trying to get make sure everything is the right size, and it's easier to do that when you're zoomed out. Remember, this part here actually stops here, and so I kind of did that wrong. I was thinking about the hips at the same time. Okay, so let's just kind of come out a little bit with the neck, then come down, then come back out. So the whole spine kind of has this S curve to it. I'll come back in and clean it up when I start drawing it, but for now, make sure we get it all right. So far everything pretty much looks the same as you would kind of expect from a front view. It's just you're seeing a little bit of the side. So you're seeing a little bit of the side of the spine here. Remember that from the side view we learned the skull and the rib cage. The rib cage mostly comes out in the front from the spines, not the back. So let's go and put it out. Make sure it's all the same height and everything. So you're going to have one collarbone coming out over here. The other collarbone is kind of, excuse me, going to be coming around and disappearing. It's going to go back around like that and disappear. And then the arm will be over here somewhere. We want to make sure our sternum is going to fit in this area here. And it's kind of coming at an angle. Everything stays pretty much the same from the 3/4 view as far as heights and everything go. So remember, we don't want to go down too far. We want to go all the way down to the bottom here. And so actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to start putting the sacrum in here as it comes down and curves around. And then I'm going to have this blade that still comes up the same height. And so I'm just seeing something here. Okay, so see the from the back view it's like this, but see how this hip bone, the sacrum should actually start down here. So I actually have to come down one more. And then the sacrum is going to start in this area. I knew something wasn't right because I was like, wait a minute, that's not how it's supposed to be. And it's going to come down like that. Now what happens here is you're having a side, kind of a side view, so this whole thing is being foreshortened, the hip here, this part of the pelvic bone. And you're going to see part of that iliac crest here, so I'm going to just kind of put it in there. Then you see a kind of a swoop comes down like this. You see the ball joint where it's going to be connecting is the same, pretty much. And it's going to come out, it's going to come down, and it's this one here that's going to come, you can have the part of the hip bones that come out here to the front, and then this is all going to come out here. I'm just going to draw the basic shape here. From the inside, this really looks huge when from this diagonal view, from the 3/4 view, this plate here can look quite large, but it's not going to come out further than the rib cage. So the rib cage kind of comes out like this. This comes down here, and then it starts curving back. It might look like there's more space between in 3/4 view between the hips and the rib cage than it does from other views, and even like it's kind of because it's from the side view. Remember that trick we learned? That illusion that happens there. So we're going to kind of come like this. Right, that's the ultimate shape of the rib cage there. This part's going to kind of come down, and from the 3/4 view, it kind of comes like this. And then it's going to kind of curve around inside as well, because it's coming around, and you can see the inside of this shape here. Like that. Where this hip bone connects, you're going to see the inside of the femur. We'll zoom in more in a second and get on the details, but I just want to show basic shapes first. And then this leg, this bone, the femur bone, is going to come down. Has a little notch there. Comes down like this. And we're going to have, just going to kind of draw on the basic mass. So I don't draw it too large. I want to draw the basic mass shape here and here. So we haven't gone into any details yet because we're zoomed out right now. I'm just making sure the proportions are going to be correct. The sizes are going to read right. Little part of the bone here. This is still going to come down and then get big here. So that stays on that same line. And the hand will pretty much come down to the same line here with these bones as they cross. They're going to cross over an interesting way from that view though. The bone is going to be behind us. It's behind the rib cage. We can't really see it. It comes down like this. It's going to stop right about here because we're at an angle. So because we're at a 3/4 angle, this is going to be up a little bit higher. It's going to have a shape like this. And then it's going to kind of come out like this. Don't worry, we're going to go in and draw the actual details in a bit, like that. Notice the femurs, they come in. See how they come in? You can still see that, just not as pronounced as from the front view or back view, because you can't see it so much from the side view, right? And this is a mix of the front view and side view. This will come down here, little notch. Heel, measure the foot. It'll come out. I don't want the foot to be too big, like I did with the front view. That little bone there. And actually, what's going to happen here is this isn't going to be on the line. This is going to be up just a little bit more, like so. The reason why is because when the 3/4 view, everything's kind of on this angle, so these body parts will be a little bit higher. Okay, let's move this back up again a little bit. I need to zoom in to do this because it's just too far away right now. I can't draw like that for this part. Okay. Again, for right now, we're just drawing the basic shapes for the feet. We're not going to actually draw all the little bones yet until when we deal with the hands and feet, we will. But for the basic skeleton now, I just want to look and make sure everything looks right, and it does. So there's going to be this part that kind of comes down a little bit lower here, and we'll see a little bit of angle of that one there. All right, so now we can zoom in and start adding the details. And what I'm going to do though is take a big soft eraser. I'm just going to kind of erase a lot of this here. Okay, so now we can zoom in and start adding the actual details of the figure from the 3/4 view of the skeleton structure. And again, I can't stress how important it is to learn all this, to be able to draw this from your mind. It's very important because there's certain landmarks you'll learn from different views of the skeletal structure, like the inside of the leg, for example, the femur bone and stuff like that. And that's going to click in your mind when you're drawing a pose that shows the inside of the leg, like, oh wait, there should be this little landmark here. The bone should kind of stick out right here. And if the character's really skinny, then you'll really be able to add more landmarks that you wouldn't be able to have before. And then when you learn the muscles, that's going to even be that much greater because you'll know, oh wait a minute, I know how the bones look underneath the muscles. I know the skeletal structure. I know what part of the bone this muscle is attaching to. So when their arm or leg twists this way, then I know that muscle is going to stretch and move this way too. And it's that knowledge is going to be, it's in your mind. You're building up neural networks. It's kind of like you're inventing something. And your mind is looking at it as an invention as you go through these videos and go through the exercises. However, if you don't go through the exercises, if you just watch them, you're hardly doing yourself any benefit at all. You might be able to see a little bit of benefit, a little bit different in your drawings, but if you want to reach a mastery level, you need to do the exercises and keep doing them until you reach that point where you got it memorized and you can draw it well for your imagination. If you go and master and do each lesson like I ask you to and master it, your level of drawing from your imagination is going to blow you away, and you're going to be able to draw and invent things because your mind looks at each of these pieces of information as an invention because you went through the exercises. If you don't do the exercises, you haven't invented nothing in your brain yet. You haven't built a complex neural network of information. When you go through the exercises, you build this complex neural network of information, and then your brain can tap into that easily when you're drawing figures, and you're like, oh, okay, and then it's able to take the information and assimilate it in a new way. Go, well, I never drew this particular view before, but because I know the bone looks like this from this view and this to this view, and these muscles attach here and there, if the arm stretches up, these bones are going to pull the muscles, and the muscles are going to stretch this way, and you'll be able to figure all that out logically, deductively from the information that you've built up. So it's really important to do the exercises. In fact, one exercise you should do, again, just to refresh, is draw this what we just did, again, from your imagination. So it's just a quick structure of the skeleton. It's not detailed at all. You're zoomed out the entire time while you're drawing it. So draw this right here. Draw it, if you're on a piece of paper, draw it small. If you're on Photoshop, make sure you're zoomed out so you can see the whole figure. And draw it in like this without zooming in at all. And draw the figure with just a basic structure to it like this. And then draw it from imagination, and then draw it from reference, imagination, reference, until you can draw this 3/4 view in a simplistic manner. And then we'll then move on and do this part here that we're about to work on. Right, so first we're going to deal with this section here. I'm going to just refer to the whole thing as a sternum, the whole collection, the whole piece as a sternum, even though they have this part here has a different name. I just deal with this whole part as if it's the sternum. It's being foreshortened a little bit, but not much. If you've forgotten the name of this piece here, it's the manubrium, and this is the sternum. And don't worry, I have included in the zip file of images skeletal structure with all the names of the bones, pointing out, and it says the name of the bones. That we can quickly reference bones and muscles and stuff like that, just in case you're interested in the naming of them. Remember, you have this connection here for your collarbone, and it kind of comes like this at an angle from this view, and it attaches over here, because remember, coming up above you have the scapula. So from the 3/4 view, the scapula is going to kind of come up to about here. It comes down. It's not very large. The scapula it's pretty big, but it's not very big. It doesn't take up much space at the back here. It comes down to maybe about here. You're going to see a little bit of the socket part here of the scapula where the humerus fits into. So let's go ahead and draw that like so. And then you're going to see this curved part here, and it curves down like this. So that's the basic shape of it from this view. Learning the different shapes that bones have from different views also gives you a more rounded idea of the overall shape of the bone, like in 3D, which is why we go through the different views. You have this little crest here, like a thickness of that part of the bone right there, comes down. And this is the part, remember, we learned that comes up. And this is all going to be behind the humerus from this view, but it comes up here, then it turns around, remember, has this turning point here. And so I'm going to draw that turning point, and this is where it connects to the collarbone, which is here. It kind of comes like this, connects to the collarbone. This turns around. This is going to be shaded in darker because it turns around and disappears like this. Now, when we draw the humerus from this angle, what we're going to really be able to see a lot is this certain groove. I forget the name of the groove exactly. I could, go look it up in a medical book, but it's really not that important. It's just important that you have this groove here. And this groove is where a lot of muscles attach. Well, they attach to tendons or ligaments, but ultimately it's where they attach. So, and what I'm hoping I haven't done is the reason why I wanted to draw the basic shape of the bone from far away is for I don't draw it too big when I zoom in, like I did with the feet and the front view. It's really easy mistake to make. So it's good to have your measurements down so you know beforehand how big things are supposed to be, which is why you want to draw it zoomed out. And you really, when you draw any drawing, you kind of want to start zoomed out and then zoom in after you have all the basics down, and then start adding the details. I really recommend doing that with any. You know what, I actually drew that on the coloring part, so that's kind of cool. I can go back and just erase that and then add the coloring to it. Okay, so remember the rib cage though is coming, you have your first rib, which comes off like that, and then you have your second rib, which comes off, and there's this more of a cartilage part here. And then the bone, the actual rib itself, starts from here like that and wraps up and around. And then this one will wrap up and around and connect to the vertebrae in the back there. But I just want to show that as these come around here, that's what causes this shape, and this is coming in front of the scapula. Then it's going to kind of come down like this, actually more. Right, so it's kind of like that. So the scapula is behind. Just remember the scapula is behind the rib cage. I'm going to kind of shade in this inner part here, this part that's acting like the socket for the humerus. And I can't add too much detail anyway because it's a tiny drawing, and I'm using a size 3 brush already. So I'd have to draw it bigger if I wanted to draw more details. But this is enough detail anyway until we study some bones we'll study at a more advanced level, ones that are important. Now here you can kind of see the inside of where this is going to connect because there's ligaments and stuff that help connect these bones. And from this view, this collarbone is going to do a really trippy thing because remember it's kind of S-curved, and this is where you can really see that S-curve. So what's going to happen is it turns down away from us right here, then it comes back over here like so, like an S, and it connects. So it does this kind of S thing here. So from a bigger view it looks like this. You have this part here, and it comes out like this, and then it's turning in around itself like this, and it's coming over here, and it's going to attach to that part of the scapula that comes up like so. And this will be a little bit darker because it's turning in. Okay. And I'm just going to kind of draw the shape here as it disappears like that. And you have the part of the rib, as it comes around this way, and it kind of blocks our view and it comes over there. And this whole shape of the ribs then each individual ribs that comes back around over there. Actually, they start coming down and then wrapping around like that. Just want to make sure we have the basic shape here. This attaches up here, and there's a whole ligament system. All these bottom ribs, I think it's the last 4 ribs, all attached together to one like ligament structure. We'll get into that. And you want to draw the basic shape here. And we can kind of like shade in that, show that it's going inside. Then you have, your floating ribs, or the floating rib. No, floating ribs. Sorry. What we can see just barely is you can't really see the scapula. It's really hard, but because it's all being blocked, you might be able to see a little bit of the scapula over here, going back like that. Then it comes up, and you can see it come over here and has this part. The humerus bone is right around this area here. You can kind of see part of it here, like this. You can kind of see that groove that groove that we have over there. And the bone is going to come down like so. We're going to see a little part of this, that part over there, and this part over here. So we'll see the part that the radius attaches to and that the ulna attaches to. And so the ulna is going to be here, and the radius is here. Remember, the radius has the kind of curved, it's the curved bone, the one that turns over and around. And it kind of comes in. You have this bigger part down here. Oops. So it's going to kind of come up like this. I don't want to add too much curve to it. And then the ulna comes down over here, attaches to one of these bones. Zoom out, just make sure I haven't made everything too big. See, that got a little big there because you get too focused on drawing the thing you're drawing and not paying attention to the whole, and that's why it's good to draw zoomed out. Try to get everything as much as you can zoomed out so you don't make that mistake. Right, and so the hands, not so important right now. We're not working on that yet. Right, so since you're getting better and better at memorizing the things, and pretty much you already have all this memorized. Now you're just trying to memorize how they look from this particular angle. You're no longer memorizing the actual shapes of objects, but just how they look from different angles. I'm going to bring him down a little bit further. Because I drew him when I was all zoomed in. So, but yeah, so now what you want to do is you want to, for the exercise, is to draw what we have here so far, and to draw this so that you have it memorized in your mind how they look from this angle, like how this comes and wraps around behind. It comes forward and it wraps around to behind the character. See, it's going behind the character, so you're seeing it, boom, come behind the character, and that's coming behind the character like that from this really short view here. And just memorize how these shapes look from this particular view. It's an important view, I think, to learn, and it'll put certain things in your mind that later on will be very helpful. Anyway, so the exercise is to draw this from obviously you're drawing along with the video. If you're not drawing along with while watching, you're really doing yourself a disservice. Don't just watch this. Just stop watching it, because you're not going to want to watch it again. You're going to kind of poop yourself out, and you're not going to want to go through it again and actually draw with it. So make sure right when you watch it, draw with it while you're watching it. Just draw with it while you're watching it. And so you've already drawn this so far with me. Go ahead and draw it a few more times from reference, and then draw it from memory, and go back and forth until you kind of have these shapes down, and it shouldn't take too much longer, or it shouldn't take long at all, because you already have the basic structures memorized. You're just going, okay, they look a little different from this angle. I'm going to go ahead and memorize how they look from this angle. Then we'll come in here and remember on the thumb side, so because we know that we know the palms are up because the radius is on this side. That means that the thumb is on that side. Remember, the radius is on the same side as the thumb. And so we know the thumb bone is on this side, like this. And then we know the fingers are going to come out here. And this is the finger and part of the palm that I'm drawing. That's why the fingers look so long on the skeleton, because part of this here, this part of these bones are part of your palm, and then your knuckles are in here. So we'll get into the hand later, like I said. From this side, though, because of the pose we've been drawing and keeping it consistent so that we can, when we memorize the bones, you need to do a consistent pose like that. So if you use different poses when you're trying to learn the basics, it makes it more difficult. And this is really tiny, so it's hard to draw these details, but so I'm getting a little too detailed here, I think. Let's see here, I'll try to keep it more simple. So this is the radius bone. It kind of comes out with this S curve here, and so come down and attaches, and it gets bigger here where it attaches. Remember, there's ligaments and stuff that hold everything together. Ligaments, cartilage, tendons, and so forth. Different skin, films that come over and stretch. And we know that the thumb then has to be on this side because the radius is on this side. If you can memorize that, it's going to help you memorize something really important about a muscle that attaches when you have the brachialis muscle that will come between it's going to come between it's attached over here. When we memorize that muscle and where it attaches, it's going to be really important that you know it's always on the thumb side. And if you know that this bone is the one that turns over, you'll know that that muscle turns over. And it helps you a lot. It's the muscle that goes between your bicep and tricep, but it's not the brachii between it, but the one that comes down a little bit further and comes out into the forearm. Right now we'll draw the ulna. Some of it's being hidden by this bone from this view. It comes down, it gets a little bit wider down here. And again, a lot of it's being hidden behind the radius bone. You have all these little bones in here. Really not all that important to learn that anyway. Doesn't really make much difference in drawing the hand. It's really important you learn like the muscles of the hand and the tendons of the hand. That's what's more important. And we will go through that. Right, so now we want to get into the hip. If you want to go ahead and do one more exercise real quick, you can just go ahead and add that on there. That is a little different than this view. And there's not too much more information there, but it is interesting to see, like when you view it from a slightly different angle, they start to overlap each other, because if you view it from this angle, this is overlapping this bone, and you get more of a view like this here. In the same way, if you had, let's say you had two pipes like this, and they're next to each other. When you view it from the front view, you see it like this. But if you view it from the side view, you're going to see it like this. And then let's say it's not quite directly from the side view, so you can kind of see the other pipe kind of behind it. You're going to see the other pipe a little bit behind it like that. And so you can kind of see both pipes like this, almost overlapping each other. Let's see if I can just backtrack here instead of erasing. Okay. So coming in with the hips here, we're going to come down here with this spine. Attach in here. Remember, there's spaces like cartilage in between here. I think it's cartilage. You have your individual. Actually, you know what? I'm going to come out a little bit farther with this here. That way I can have the spikes. So the spikes actually come out like this. The spikes of each vertebrae as it comes out and it goes up. Just remember that that's there. You can see that from this view. Just drawing this iliac crest here. It's an important part of the pelvic bone where a lot of muscles are going to be attaching. So from this view, things look really weird. this particular thing, the way it's foreshortened, it looks strange compared to how you've learned to draw it so far. And I don't know why I drew this. From this angle, this doesn't look that long at all. It actually only comes down to about here. It looks very foreshortened. And you have this little dip here we learned about before. Oops. More like this here. And then you have the socket part, which is mainly a bunch of other tissues are going to make up the socket. It's not in the bone itself. It is a little bit, but most of it's in the different tissues that end up surrounding the bone and in that area, and the harder tissues like ligaments and stuff that form that socket. So this bone from this view has this kind of look to it. So it's kind of really similar to the side view. That line kind of overlaps there. Right, and it comes down like so. So now we can see this part of the hip, and it's going to kind of come down over here like this, which is really similar to the front view now, but it's more foreshortened. It's not quite the same. And then this is where you're going to see the part of the bone that comes under like this. Let's go ahead and draw part of the sacrum, and you can kind of see some of it here. It's going to kind of come down. You can see some of the holes like that, and then you might be able to see this hole here and that hole there as it's going down back around. You might even be able to see part of that coming down over here. Part of the sacrum still comes over here and attaches, remember? I'm going to kind of erase some of this stuff underneath here that I no longer need. Right, so it comes, I'm going to kind of shade this to show that it is kind of like it's behind it, but it's there. And we'll draw this part here. As it comes down, you have an attachment here. This comes off, makes this kind of shape here and here. You have that big plate there. You can see part of the inside of this comes like this. Kind of shade it to show it's kind of curving behind and away from us. You'll be able to see a little bit of this part that hangs down, and you only see a part of it like that though. It kind of comes up, and, that part comes back around into the back side. Remember, you can see it from the side view. It comes back around to the back, all the way to the back. So it goes from the front of the pelvis to the back of the pelvis. And you can really kind of get that idea here from this 3/4 view. You can really kind of see that concept there. The hip bone is actually going to be more in this area right here, so the sketch wasn't quite right, the quick sketch I did. So, because I know that it's wrong, I'm going to correct it. We'll be able to see a little bit of the inside. I'm going to make sure I keep this small enough too. You'll kind of be seeing the inside of the bone now, of this part of the bone over here. And then you'll be able to see a little bit of the side view of the bone. From this, only from this inner angle can you see this little part of the bone there, which isn't really important to learn, but might as well show it because it's there. Right, so this is a lot of information that's quite different than the other views you learned from the hip bone. So you want to go ahead and take your time with the exercise on this one to draw it from reference a few times, and then draw it from memory the best you can, and then draw it from reference and memory until you can kind of get this down, because this view of the hip bone is going to help you when drawing the figure. Because remember, the legs come way up here. You start to see the legs way up here, then you see your love handles in this area here. And knowing that, then how the hip goes, you'll be like, okay, so from this view I can kind of see part of the iliac crest here, but from over here, when the leg comes in, and then all the muscles come out and so forth. You don't see it from this angle. And just knowing that is going to help you when drawing the 3/4 view of the figure. And really, the 3/4 view of the figure is the hardest. I think it's the hardest view to learn of all the views. Right. So after you've done the exercises and you feel like you have a good grasp on this here, and let's go ahead and I'm going to make sure. Oops. I don't know if that's supposed to be there. Okay, that's on this layer. That's not supposed to be there. Should be a whole opening space right there. Then we'll move on and draw the rest of the figure, which will be the legs. And the legs not much happens from this view of the legs, so you're not adding much information. So the exercise should take you a lot. It's not a lot longer. It should take you hardly any time at all. It's just barely, the information is pretty much the same. You're only adding a little bit more information from this view. Keep in mind what we're doing though, if you view it more simply, is you're kind of seeing the side view of the thing, and you're kind of seeing the front view of the thing, of the object, right? And then where this comes up. So if you think about more like a box, you're seeing the side view and you're seeing the front view like that of that box. And that's how you want to kind of visualize what we're about to draw. And if you have those views memorized, then this shouldn't be too difficult. So when you have the patella coming down, or the kneecap, like so, you can kind of see a little bit of the side view of it, like that. So it has some thickness to it. You're going to be able to see a little bit of the front part of the bone here, kind of the front view. And then as we come down here, we're seeing some of the side view of this bone here. And it kind of comes like this and then that way. You're going to be able to see a little bit of the front part coming down like this, and then the side view of it. This under part here kind of comes here. You can't see this notch so much. This notch is more hidden from this view than like from other views, but it's still kind of there. And you have the bone here. So right now this is the tibia, and then now we'll do the fibula. If you're wondering which one has the sound of fibula, see tibia, fibula, is think of it like you fib, and I don't know. Never mind, that sounds stupid. I thought I had something cool way to memorize it, but I didn't. So the tibia is going to be hidden a little bit by the bottom of the fibula down here, as this comes down and attaches to the foot. It's going to kind of be like this. So it hides part of that tibia bone. And then you can still see this shape here with this bone, kind of like from the front view. You can still kind of see that part from this view. And then you'll be able to see a little bit of the heel. The heel is really foreshortened here, so it's not going to come out as far. And you can kind of see the bottom part of that bone. And it comes down here, and they have different foot bones, and all the toes will come out here. We're not drawing the details of that yet. So as you can see, there's not a whole lot more information that you're adding from these views. Now, something interesting happens from the inside view of this bone here. So you have the patella, the femur, and something happens interesting at the bottom of the femur. You can actually see this notch, this inside notch here, inside side view notch of this bone, and it kind of is shaped like this. And it's a pretty distinctive shape that can make a difference when you're drawing the inside of a leg. You'll be able to see a little bit of that notch, like I said. Actually, the notch is a little bit higher than that. It's like there. And this causes, from the side view, it causes this kind of look like that in the leg. When you see the kneecap, you see the kneecap, and you see this little dent like that. I got the kind of side view. Knowing the bone structure there and that joint is really important on how to draw the legs from different views and little landmarks that really make things look more realistic. So you're going to have the front view a little bit of this bone here, of the tibia, but what happens on the inside, we can't see over here where it's wrapping around. What happens is it comes over here and it has a look like this. Now, this is where I develop my idea when I draw the feet. I always have this curve that I draw in my feet. And so if I draw them from the front view, I put that in there too. And it's like this. I have this curve, then I come out where my foot's gonna be, and I know. So I like this curve because it helps me to visualize the three-dimensionality of the foot, and it might help you too. I don't know. Just thought I'd say that's kind of where I get it from. So this is more of a side view of the foot here. Okay. Like I said, we're not getting into like the feet yet, really. So, all right. So now I can come through here and I can erase. So some of that stuff I haven't drawn yet. Let me go ahead and go back up here and let's go ahead and draw this on this layer. Make sure it's there. Right. So let me make sure, because I always do this when I zoom in like that. That's why I try to make the landmarks clear, but still this part gets a little bit big. Even though I was trying to make the on my sketch, I was trying to make the landmarks clear, but still they got a little bit big, so just make them a little bit smaller. But it's not a big deal because you saw how big they're supposed to be, you know. You know how big these bones are already. You know, like in relation to everything else, you should have a good feeling for how big they are. And so there we go. Right, so then for the exercise, go ahead and do, obviously you drew along with me. Now go ahead and draw this part of the body, the femur, tibia, and fibia, and that's the basic shape of the feet. Draw it from reference a few times, draw it from memory, go back and forth until you kind of have it memorized. There's not a whole lot that changes in these views, so you're not adding that much information to your consciousness, to your elaborate neural network that you're going to be able to tap into and draw from your mind. We're just about done with the skeleton. So I think all we have to do now is maybe a top view. And the reason why I'm drawing all these views is because we're going to be attaching the muscles to all these skeletons. And when we're learning a muscle, how we're going to do it is we're going to go, okay, from the front view, here's how the muscle looks, here's how it attaches. And if that muscle is important and you can see it from any of the views, we'll be like, here's how that same muscle looks from the side view. Here's how that same muscle looks from the three-quarters view. Here's how that muscle looks from the top view. And that's going to help solidify the overall shape of the muscle in your mind in a three-dimensional form, which is necessary to draw from your mind because you have to be able to imagine the three-dimensional figure on paper to draw complex poses. And the muscles are going to help you tremendously. And they're going to help you a lot more than the bones, but still, the bones are the foundation. If you don't understand the foundation, you're not going to know where muscles are attached to, why when the arms move this way, the muscle moves that way. You'll be able to logically figure all that out now because you know the bones and stuff. And we'll kind of go through like the basic movement and so forth. Like with the scapula, if you remember, the scapula moves, it has movement, it can move up, it can move down, it can move this way, it can move that way, left and right. It can move forward, so it can move toward the person, away from the person. So it really has a full 360 movement, which allows, so when you move this arm up, the scapula, you memorize this shape here. And so when the arm moves up, this whole thing rotates. And so now the shape, that point, comes out here like this. And now the arm's coming up. And so that, oh, okay, so when I draw the arm, I can have this part, this little line in here when I add into it, and it'll make your figure look that much more realistic. You'll see what I mean when we actually draw a pose like that. Right, so there you have it. This in itself, if you're able to draw all this now from your memory, is probably enough information to really change how you draw your figures, and without even having the top view or anything like that. Another view I might do is a 3/4 back view. I don't know if it's necessary that we need to draw it, like because it'll take about 40 minutes to an hour extra. So I might just like draw it off screen or off recording, and then you'll just see it. Okay, here's another view over here that we might attach muscles to. It's not important to like learn to draw like that though. If you want, you can do that yourself by taking a three-dimensional figure, online or something, and looking at that view and then learning it and doing exercises and mastering that 3/4 back view if you want. But we will definitely go through the top view of the skeletal structure because it's going to be important for some muscles. All right, thank you for watching.